I'm not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the maker of heaven. Give it all.
I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make
something beautiful out of me. I give it all.
I give it all to you, God,
trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the maker of heaven. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the maker. I give it all.
I give it all to you, God,
trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. I give it all.
I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make
something beautiful out of me. And I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. Lord, I'll climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. Lord, I'll climb this mountain with my. There's nothing I hold on to. 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 'Cause I am so in love. I am so in love with you. There is no one else for me. I am so in love. So in love with you. There is no one else for me. I am so in love. I am so in love with you. There there is no one else for me. 'Cause I am so in love with you, there is no one else for me.
Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Oh, let it rise. Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. Let the joy of our King rise among us. Oh, let it rise. Oh, let it rise. Oh, help me sing it.
Let it rise.
Right now, God's praises need to be lifted up right where you are. Let the glory,
Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the glory of the Lord rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise.
let the songs,
Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. Let the songs of the Lord rise among us. Let the joy of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Oh, let it rise. Oh, let it rise.
Good morning, Greater Houston Church.
Good morning, Greater Houston Church.
Good morning, Greater Houston Church.
Good morning, Greater Houston Church. Woo!
Good morning, Greater Houston Church.
Good morning, Greater Houston Church.
Buenos dias, Greater Houston Church.
Good morning, 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 Greater Houston Church from the campus ministry. My name is Graham, and this is Emily. We're excited to welcome you guys to church this morning.
Psalm 100 verse 2 reads, "Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture." Even though we can't be together physically this morning, we are still God's people, and I'm so grateful and excited to be able to worship him with you guys this morning.
Amen. We're looking forward to worship today, and we're looking forward to the time where we can be all together in person once again. Love you guys.
We love you, church.
And now we are going to have a short video of the youth and family team personally welcoming each of the incoming freshmen coming into the youth and family ministry this year.
Lord, the people praise you.
Lord, the people praise you.
Lift you up and raise you.
Lift you up and raise you.
You are the Holy One.
You are the Holy One.
You're the one, you're the only one.
You're the one, you're the only one.
Lord, the people who love you.
Lord, the people who love you.
Place nobody above you.
Place nobody above you.
You are the Holy One.
You are the Holy One.
You're the one, you're the only one.
You're the one, you're the only
We're singing hallelujah.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
All the glory is to you.
All the glory is to you.
You are the Holy One.
You are the Holy One.
You're the one, you're the only everyone. We will bless you with everyone. 'Cause you are the Holy One. You are the Holy One. Singing you're the one, you're the only one. You're the one, you're the only one. We're singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. All the glory is due you. All the glory is due you. You are the Holy One.
Good morning, everyone. I hope and pray that you're all doing well. It's great to be together worshiping this morning. If you're a first-time guest, we're glad that you're joining us and hope you will come back. If you're a returning guest, we're glad that you're back. We are doing well as a family. We've been going through isolation due to COVID over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, waiting on test results to come back and things like that. And it seems like we're getting to the point where we can be out of isolation as a family, which we're grateful for. When the isolation and shelter in place initially started happening, there were parts or aspects of it that I actually kind of enjoyed. But now it's just simply about perseverance for me. I'm not enjoying it much anymore, but I do know we are 1 week closer to it being all over. I think personally, I've been up and down emotionally. I think even at times probably depressed. And I started to reflect at those times and pray and just think about everything. And I realized that really much of what I was thinking about was just myself. I felt like I'd kind of gotten self-focused and all I was doing was looking in versus really out. I read a quote the other day that the antidote for a heartache is to keep your heart turned towards serving rather than towards the aching. I told myself I need to figure out and find ways to give, to serve. I need to find ways to keep loving others. And I want everyone this morning, we're going to do something a little bit different. I know many of you are probably sitting on your couch or different places, but I want you to get up and go get a glass of water. Get a glass and fill it with some water and then come back. And I'm actually going to give you a minute to do it. So we're going to pause here for a minute and I'm watching you, but I want you to get up. I'm watching you. I want you to get up and go get a glass of water and come back. I hope you all got your glass of water. I think the reason that so many people are feeling miserable today or feeling empty is because they're missing out on a crucial part of life. The Bible says that long ago God planned that you and I should serve others. As we give our life away, we end up finding life when we do that. We're created for service, and we're created to love. Turn to John 15 for me. God has called us to a different standard of living in our relationships. In John 15, verse 12, it says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." God is saying, take your cues from me. I want you to focus on what I have done for you, and that's the standard. That is how we're to treat each other. We are to love one another like He has loved us. And that's not easy. God has unconditionally forgiven us, but we don't want to unconditionally forgive others sometimes. We can feel like if we're unconditional, we're giving people a pass on something. God has unconditionally accepted us, and we can feel many times like we don't want to unconditionally accept others. God has unconditionally included us in His family, and sometimes it can feel like they got things to work on before we can be unconditional in the way of accepting people into our family. God's command is to love one another like He has loved you. Turn first to 1 John chapter 4. And this is difficult. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's easy to take stock in regarding and spending time in worshiping, having quiet time, spending time in prayer, and doing the things that we know we need to do spiritually. And sometimes we take too much stock in that. In 1 John 4, 20 through 21, it says, "If anyone says, 'I love God,' and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God who he has not seen. And this commandment we have from Him, whoever loves God must love his brother." God is saying, just don't get too caught up in those things, because if you say you love me, but you don't love the people that I put in your life very well, and if you don't love them, then you don't really love me. See, the measure of our vertical relationship, God is saying here, is measured by the depth and the maturity of our horizontal relationships with one another. We like to put those things in two different categories so many different times. We like to say it's my personal relationship with God. It's just between me and Him. But it's so opposite of what God is saying here. He's saying you and I can't function if you're not loving the people right around you. He says you and I can't be on good terms if you're not on good terms with the people around you. And He says this love is demonstrated. Or God says, I measure the depth and maturity of our relationship, you and I, and this love is demonstrated by what you do for others and how you treat others. Turn to Galatians 5. And again, I want to make sure you got your water cup, your cup full of water. I know you're sitting comfortably, but you're going to need that cup of water here in a few minutes. You know, love is about being willing to lay down your life for someone else. A way that we can do this is by serving one another, by doing things for one another, meeting one another's needs, going above and beyond. In Galatians 5, verse 13, it says, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself." You are called to be free. And you don't have to follow the law, Paul is saying. You get to choose to follow the law. And now that I'm free, we have the opportunity to freely to choose to do something. You know, it's kind of like cleaning out the dishwasher. You know, and you finish dinner and you say to your child, hey, I want you to go clean off the dishes, fill up the dishwasher, empty out the dishwasher, and take care of everything. And it's nice when they do it. But how do you feel when you come down one day and you see your child just doing it without being asked? You come down and they're emptying the dishwasher, doing the dishes. It's a whole different feeling. And I think that's the way that God feels and sees it. We're called to be free, and we have an opportunity to express that freedom in love, not to indulge in the sinful nature. It's interesting in this verse, it says, But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. Rather just brings about this large contrast in statements. Rather, serve one another. Now that you don't have to do these things, go serve. Go do. Now that you're free from the law, now that you don't have to do this stuff, here's your opportunity to go do. God is saying, I want you to freely choose to go back towards people and serve and love them. Even ones that have disappointed you. Back towards the people that have hurt you. Back towards the people that were even unfair to you. Back towards the people that you may even consider your enemies. Go serve and love. You know, how do you serve? Well, you get to know the need. Guess what? If you don't stay in touch with people, you're not going to know the needs. Some of us are having a hard time staying in touch. We got to be staying in touch with one another. And I know what you might be thinking. No one stays in touch with me. Honestly, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't change God's expectation for you. And that's actually more of God's expectation, is when it's not returned, you still do it. So that's not an excuse that we can use. Once you reach out, once you know people, you see the need and you go meet it. You go take care of it. Paul is saying you are free. And now when you think about your relationships, I want you to look for ways to serve one another. You don't have to, but when you do and you choose to do, God is saying you're like me. And when you choose not to do it, God is saying you're not like me. You know, the book of Leviticus is all about the law, all the rules and regulations that God handed down and expected the people to follow. And the law is summed up in the book of Leviticus. Leviticus 19:18, it says, "Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." This is what God was saying the whole time through the law. Love your neighbor as yourself. He said, love your neighbor, not just like your neighbor, get along with your neighbor, but love your neighbor. And how do you love? You serve. It's not an emotion. It's not like, well, we're having some problems right now. No, you go serve. Well, heal my heart, help my heart get behind it more. No, you go serve. Change my heart. No, you go serve. You go serve them. The whole law is in one statement. Love one another. So what happens if I choose not to love and serve? He gives the contrast in the same passage, if you remember. You don't have to do it. You're not under the law. There are no rules. But if you choose not to serve, if you choose to allow your freedom to appeal to your sinful nature, that selfish part of you that says, I want to do what I want to do, this is what you can expect, he says. There in verse 14, we'll start there. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command, love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out or you will be destroyed by each other. So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not satisfy or gratify the desires of the flesh. Now, you don't have to serve. You can allow the self-centered part of you to reign and rule, but eventually, you're going to destroy each other. You're going to destroy yourself. Let me say it a different way. If you only continue to serve yourself, eventually you're going to be all by yourself. If you continue just to serve yourself, and maybe not physically, but certainly emotionally, you will be all by yourself and without God. If you refuse to do what needs to be done, you refuse to meet the needs of the people around you, you serve yourself, and down the road, you'll be all by yourself. This applies to individuals, married couples, families. If you're a married couple and you refuse to meet the needs of the people around you, down the road, you're going to be by yourselves. You will self-destruct relationally. But I think sometimes so we don't feel guilty about not giving, not loving, and not serving, we blame. No one ever does, and then fill in the blank. No one, and we just add the hurts that we may be feeling. In your attempt to get what you want, you end up not getting what you want. In your attempt to get life your way, you don't ever really get life your way. It's not wait until God moves our heart. It's not wait until I've forgiven. It's not until someone else does something. It's just simply serve one another. And that's the call for every single one of us. And he says there in verse 16, so I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. You know, as you follow God, get ready. Because God is going to lead you in the direction of serving other people, of laying your life down for other people, of giving all your energy for other people. And here's what we know. When we decide to serve, even someone that we're not on the same page with, when we decide to serve, it breaks the control of the self-centeredness that's in our lives. Service does damage the self-centeredness. You know, if you're greedy, what do? The best way to get rid of greed is to start giving. The best way to deal with self-centeredness and selfishness is to go start serving. And we must realize in all this thing in me, this self-centeredness, this wanting to be selfish, has a potential to wreck my life, my relationships, my marriage, my kids, my relationships at work. This potential in me, if I let it just go its own way, its own route, and I don't counteract it, if I don't work against it, it's going to result in things that I don't want to happen in my life. It will result in isolation, loneliness, loss of purpose, and just meaning in life. What do I do to get in control of it? God says, serve. And I'm not going to wait for my heart to change because I'm going to master it. When you said yes to Christ, you were given authority over your self-centeredness. The Holy Spirit gives you the power to overcome your selfishness. You have the power to say no to yourself. I will not allow selfishness and self-centeredness to rule in my life, but I will serve. I will lay down my life for others. I will serve people that God has put in my life, and even if those people may have hurt me. Jesus demonstrated this in a mind-blowing way. It's a passage I think many of us have read. Most all of us probably know the story, but it struck me so much more deeply this time. Turn to John 13. It's mind-blowing. You know, the context of this passage is Jesus is at the end of his ministry. He's gathering for his final meal with his 12 friends. There's Judas, who is going to betray him. And Jesus knows that. There's Peter, who is going to deny him. And Jesus knows that. Then there's the other 10 that out of fear are going to abandon him in his greatest time of need, and Jesus knows that. You have the betrayer, the deniers, the cowards. They're all gathered there at the last final meal with Jesus, and he knows all this. In verse 1, it says, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. I think that's so incredible. He loved them to the end. Unconditional. It goes on in verse 2. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. I mean, put yourself in that room. Your friend is going to betray you, which is going to lead to you being crucified in a few hours. Your biggest fan, your closest maybe relationship, is going to betray you and deny you 3 times. And then all your other friends are going to abandon you. When you put yourself in that room and you know that God has given you all power and all authority, what would you do? God has put all authority in your hands. Whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. And here was Jesus' next move. In verse 4, so. What a big word. So with all this in mind, with knowing how everyone's going to react, knowing all the power that he had, so he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. When he had all power, all authority, he could do anything that he wanted. With the betrayers, the deniers, the people that abandoned him in the room, what did he do? He washed their feet. All power, all authority, and he washed their feet. What would you do in those moments? What would I do in those moments? I think serve them up, yes. Serve them, no. He goes on in verse 12. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. He says, do you understand what I've done for you? Do you understand? Do you understand, church, what Jesus has done for you? Do you realize what he just did? I am the Lord, capital L. I am Lord, and I have set you an example. You should do the same. You must do the same. He gathered with the betrayers, the deniers, and the cowards, and what did he do? He served them. Then a few hours later, he hung on a cross for their betrayal, the deniers and the cowards. And he said, I want you to go into the world and serve. You do it because I did it to you. I want you to use your freedom that you have. This freedom you use to serve. Not because they deserve it, but because I did it for you. You know, there's another story about a mother that comes and asks Jesus about her 2 boys, about being able to sit at the right and the left of him in his kingdom. And in the story, Jesus equates the greatness with serving. You know, the world may assess a person's greatness by the number of people whom they may have authority over, or by someone's intellect or degrees that they may have, or the number of committees they may be on, or by the size of their bank balance and the material possessions they may have, the size of their home, or the places that they get to go and see. But in the assessment of Jesus, these things are completely irrelevant. His assessment is quite simply, who are you serving? How much are you serving? God, anyone has disappointed you? Go serve them. Got someone that hurts you? Serve them. You got that person at work? Go serve them. Are you just selfish or self-centered? Go serve. There are some that get served over and over and never serve back. You've taken and taken. It's time to go serve. It's time to start giving. There are some that have gotten so self-focused during this pandemic. We got to go serve. There are some listening today, members of our fellowship, and you've stopped serving. You need to start serving. You need to start laying your life back down for one another. If you're not serving, I believe you're self-focused. You're not loving how God has loved you and are in opposition to God. And the great thing is we just got to repent. We change and we go start serving. Well, this is kind of heavy, Derek. Well, I think this is serious. During this time, we can't let Satan win and use what is going to be an excuse of a pandemic and all the other things as an excuse not to lay our lives down for one another. We need to be initiating, we need to be giving, we need to be pouring out all that we have for one another. Well, I don't know what to do. This is something I believe very strongly. When you have a conviction about something, you get creative. When you really believe something, you figure out a way. We get innovative, we get creative. Conviction breeds creativeness. And there's so many scriptures and passages about giving our lives up for others. Mark 10, verse 45. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. John 15, verse 12. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, is to lay down one's life for one's friends. 2 Timothy 4, verse 6 and 7. For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Remember that cup of water I wanted you to have? Pick it up and look at its fullness. Look at its fullness. This week, this cup represents your life. Put it somewhere visible for you, your family to see, whether that's in the kitchen, on your desk, or at work, or in your bathroom. Put it where everyone can see and that you'll see it. And be sure to let people know in your family, your household, what it is, so no one accidentally drinks it, pours it out, gives it to the dog. You can write on a piece of tape and put it on it and say, and just write out, my life. At the end of each day, if you've given your all, if you've laid down your life for others, and you have emptied yourself for others, then you can pour it out completely. If you felt like you could have gave more, if you felt like, yeah, I gave half today, well then pour out half. If you kept it full and didn't do anything that day, then decide tomorrow to have a better day. But after you pour it out that night, the next morning when you get up, fill that cup back up full of water. And then lay down your life and love people completely all day long and serve people. Pour yourself out every single day. Let's do this for at least the next week. Take your glass of water, fill it up at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day, come pour out how much of your life you poured out into others. As we finish up today, I think this is just a simple exercise to help us to evaluate the love that we're demonstrating with one another. I think it'll get us thinking about it and evaluating and reflecting each day about how we're really living our lives. Because again, our vertical relationship with God is based on our horizontal relationships with one another. We can't claim to love God and not love the people that are around us. You can't be in isolation and on your own and not giving back and think that you have this great relationship with God. We have to be out, initiating, serving, giving, laying our life down for one another. And I think this is just a great way to evaluate that and demonstrate that. You know, I love you, church. I'm praying for you to grow in your knowledge and your depth of love for one another. And remember, we're 1 week closer to being able to be back together whenever God opens the door up to be back together. I love you and have a great week.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks again so much for joining us this morning for our service. I'm really grateful for what Derek decided to share this morning about serving, unconditional love, and just really engaging with each other. I know that initially, when we went into quarantine, I was gung-ho, ready to, send people meals. I definitely can't sew, so I wasn't doing masks, but I was just really much more on alert to make sure that I was doing things for people. And I think as time has went on, I've kind of run into that rut too, of just, okay, I guess this is life. I think I'll Zoom, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then we were in quarantine for a couple of weeks, so that definitely made the cabin fever and kind of the mundanes of life a reality. But I needed today to be reminded that there is so much more that I can do to be engaged with all of you, with my neighbors, with my friends, with my family. I've actually been so encouraged by all the things that I have seen so many of you do. The parade birthday parties, I've loved doing that, honking and screaming my head off at people. And I've received cards through the mail, extra times of talking on the phone, Zoom calls, FaceTime. So I've been very, very inspired by so many of the things that you have done that I want to make sure that I do with everybody, and I continue to do. So I guess the encouragement that I would have for myself and for all of you is just don't grow weary in doing good. There's so much that we have still yet to do for each other, and however long the months continue with being in quarantine or shelter in place or whatever may come, we have so much that God can guide us to do for each other and be committed to each other. So I really hope you hold me accountable, and you can ask me, hey, what are you doing to serve again, so that I can make sure that I'm with all of you and taking care of all of you and those that I love. I really, really thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you, Derek, for sharing. And I know right now, if you're joining us, we're so grateful that you took the time to worship with us today. If you want to be involved in a small group or a Bible study, we are definitely here for you. And please reach out to someone or even write in the chat box on the Facebook Live. Thank you again for joining us on this Sunday morning. I know now we're going to break into our small groups, give our offering, and have a time of communion together. Have a wonderful week, and God bless all of you.